get my 6. I just heard a tree knock. Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid, the most awesomest homesteading channel on the internet that has nothing to do with homesteading. I want to show you something really cool before we get to tonight's October night story. Yeah, it's my shirt too. You like this? The greatest. There's Muhammad Ali standing over and looking down over Sonny Liston when he knocked him out there in their rematch. Only threw 5 punches, 28 seconds into the first round. But I found something. It's not the shirt I want to show you. I want to show you what I found. Check this out. Gotta be careful not to step on them. Here they are. Here's one of them. I'll make sure. Oh gosh, that's a new one. I didn't even see that one yet. That's 3. All right, look. I'm gonna try not to touch them. 1, 2, 3. Isn't that neat? Tiny little. Let me show you how tiny they are. Here's my hand, right? Look at it. It's like smaller than my thumb. Those are American alligator snapping turtles. We have several in our pond. And what's interesting to note is that our pond is about 300 yards. That white thing you can barely see through the trees because they've grown so much now is our house. It's 300 yards away. And the female turtles they come onto land to lay their eggs. They dig a hole, lay their eggs, bury them. Then these little guys hatch, and then they have to make their way all the way back down there to the pond for the first time for them. So what's amazing is, number one, the hike the mother takes to get up here takes forever. That's why if you see a turtle, like let's say you see a turtle on the side of the road, and you go grab it and you're supposed to put it in a pond or put it in a river, you're not helping it. You might be hurting it. You ever heard the saying, did you ask the turtle? It's in reference to, a lot of times people will help other people who didn't ask for help, and then when they're not thanked, they get butthurt about it. They think the other person's ungrateful. Well, they didn't really want you, and did you really help them in the first place? But with turtles, you may be harming them because that pregnant female turtle might have spent a couple of days crawling to that point where you discover her and then decide to be a good Samaritan and get her and put her back in the pond. Now she's got to do it all over again. So don't do that. And don't be dumb enough to get out of your car to help one that's in the road. Do you know how many people every year actually get killed from doing that? They'll get out in the road to help a turtle get across the road, and somebody comes flying around a turn and runs them over. True story. Don't do it. All your hearts are in the right place, you folks that do this. I'm not even going to pick these guys up and take them with me when I leave up here after telling our story tonight to put them in the pond to save them a trip or a hike, because it's that hike, it's that trip that gives them the strength they'll need to survive during their lives. Now, they are scavengers, but they're also predators. So they've got to be strong. They've got to be fast. Of course, they're not that strong and that fast. Yeah, it's like this is what I was thinking, a butterfly, when it's hatching from its cocoon. If you rip that cocoon open, that butterfly will never fly, because it's part of getting out of that cocoon is strengthening its wings, getting its blood flowing properly so that when it is out, it's got the strength to fly. If you rip it open to let it out, it's going to have these droopy, soft little wings. So respect nature enough to leave it alone, okay? But I do have to watch my step, because I thought there were only 2, but now all of a sudden there's 3, so I don't know where they're coming from. So I hope you enjoyed that treat. I'm still going to read you a story. A couple stories, actually. We're now to October 4th, and I want to make sure to set the camera up to where we can see into the woods back here behind us, because you never know who or what may or may not show up in these videos. I'm going to read you a couple of stories submitted by viewers like you. And actually, you might be one of the viewers if your name is Teresa Nevels. And I know I'm mispronouncing that. She told me how to pronounce it. She says she likes the way I pronounce it better. She's got a YouTube channel. Go check her out. It's Mustard Faith Mustard seed faith grows, something to that effect. Teresa, if you're watching, correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong. Gotta get my old man glasses. And then we also have another story for you from our friend Charlie in England. He submitted a couple for this 4th True Hauntings. True Hauntings, Volume 4. It's now out in print. Look, remember that movie? Was that from, that's me, of course, being silly. But was that Scanners? Remember from the 70s, they'd make this scream, god-awful scream, and it would make your brain explode. And I think Donald Sutherland was in it back when he was a much younger man than he is now. So, taking up almost 6 minutes of your life showing you turtles and stuff. I just get fascinated by all this stuff. I love it. It's one of the things I enjoy about going outside to play. Unless it's like, well, I mean, below 0 or above 95, I'm outside if it's daytime. And a lot of times at night, I just really enjoy it. I work. I sensed something right here. You keep watching. All right, I'm just going to read. Yeah, I love it outside. And so if I wasn't out here, it's those little miracles like that, those tiny little turtles that I wouldn't get to see, you know? All right, so let's get to Teresa's story here first. House Wren. Okay, so it's called Foot Stomping by Teresa Nevels, but I think I'm mispronouncing that. I have a good friend, Blanche, I've known since one of the most favorite years of my life, 1987. That's one of the most favorite years of my life, too, because that's the year that my beautiful bride, Dearly, a.k.a. Giggly Girl, was born. She's the oldest sister of my high school boyfriend, Stanley. The first year of Stanley and I's relationship was fun. He introduced me to partying and drinking. Like I said, the first year was fun, but then suddenly it wasn't. Drinking made Stanley mean and paranoid. Eventually, that carried over into his sober self, and I became a victim of teen dating violence before the term was coined. That's a story for another day. Blanche's family has had a lot of turmoil over the years, emotional things, addictions, and mental illness. Due to the turmoil that ensued from the bad ending to the relationship with Stanley, we lost touch, even though we still lived in the same small town. In 2011, we crossed paths on social media. She was going through a rough patch. I reached out to Stanley to let him know Blanche was okay. We made peace with the past. Blanche's reaching out to me had to be divine intervention because we had been best friends ever since. We may go a couple of years without physically seeing each other, but we pick up exactly where we left off. After she got better, we visited a lot. We could tell each other anything without fear of judgment. For instance, we both believe in the supernatural, UFOs, etc. Unfortunately, Stanley had gotten worse over the years. Within a year, he passed away due to a self-inflicted injury. I had noticed a late-night Facebook post that raised a red flag in my gut, so I tried to reach out. I was too late, though. The loss of Blanche's baby brother hit her hard, so I would come stay with her. We'd have sleepovers just like teenagers. I didn't want her to be by herself because she was so depressed about losing her brother, as well as the family strife. Her adult child was using methamphetamine, and it began to change their behavior. They saw the infamous shadow people, and they'd wake up screaming because shadow people were attacking while they were asleep or not asleep. They began to fear going to sleep. Personally, I believe the shadow people seen by meth users are evil entities. Bad drugs open your eyes to things that you would normally not see. Users that have seen the shadow people have told me they believe them to be demons. One day, I was at her grandmother's old house where Blanche lived, and she told me she was hearing noises in the house. We joked about them being big rats. Inside the house was an old wooden chair. Blanche told me it was as old as the house. I got a feeling something was off about that chair, so I took a photo. When I uploaded the photo, there was very much the profile or a face, possibly female, above the chair. I couldn't really tell who it was, and the only way I can describe it is as a transparent shadow. I've seen these in other photos I've taken in the past, as well as other people's photos. I can describe it as a reverse negative. Blanche could see it too. There have been other times I took pictures due to curiosity of places I suspected paranormal activity, and I saw things. One time I was spiritually attacked while taking photos at an old house on a Maine island, so I stopped doing it. I even deleted the photos off my camera in Google Drive. Later, Blanche was outside having a cup of coffee when she heard someone stomping through the house. She was scared to go inside, so she went across the street to get her sister. She asked her to stay and listen to it. Both sisters heard something stomping through the house. Blanche didn't go back inside for a couple of days. Eventually, when her adult child came home from work, they went inside. She prayed and went about her business. Soon, her adult child's meth problem continued to worsen. It led to a rage attack on Blanche, and she was shot in the arm. She was all right, and long story short, her child got clean and has become an excellent human being. That's wonderful news. Blanche moved out of the house several years ago. Recently, she had an electrolytes imbalance. It caused her heart to stop on the way to the hospital. While she was in between the veil, she could see her dad, who had passed on. He said that it wasn't her time yet. Behind him was a very bright light. Blanche told me she just knew it was Jesus. She wanted to see Jesus, but her father was adamant about it not being her time. She woke up in the hospital. On a side note, when I was 16, Blanche's father told me that when he was young, he had an alcohol problem. He wasn't in a good way. One day he was in a boat fishing when he fell out. He became entangled in something under the water. When he couldn't hold his breath any longer, he saw a light shining into the water. Through the light, a hand reached down and he grabbed it. He was pulled onto the bank. When he looked up, no one was there. From that day on, he never drank a drop again and later became an ordained minister. Wow. Thank you, Teresa. There were like 4 or 5 stories in that one, maybe 6 or 8. Several scary stories, spiritual stories, and then I love to hear the human interest stories. People overcoming adversity, overcoming addiction, becoming better human beings. And that story about Blanche's father, oh, it's amazing. So, now if you guys are seeing anything back there, make sure you're time stamping it. Yeah, there's something back there, like an energy or something. I don't know. Isn't it wonderful that it's October? Oh, I love October. These glasses, man. It's like, and then I take them off. Ugh, gotta rub my eyes for a minute. Okay, let's get on to the story from our friend across the pond, Charlie in England. It's called A Lake Apart. All right. Submitted by Charles Morris. Hello, Kevin. I am still enjoying your videos, including recent stories, which inspired me to submit one I had forgotten about until you mentioned the familiar noises in your haunted house. Charlie in England here with a tale which I am happy for you to include in one of your anthologies and or air on video. Doing both, Charlie. I don't think any fiction I could write could be as unbelievable and yet also as believable as this incident is. My own familiar noises were not in a building. Back in the 1990s in the New Forest, Hampshire, my escape from stressful work was fishing at night on lakes within woodland. In a pub in the village of Lyndhurst, painters and carpenters told me that they would never work in some local houses. Night or day, they felt the presence of something in the buildings with them. One painter, needing the money, worked alone in an empty cottage and only in daylight. He listened through headphones to audiobooks on cassette tapes in a Walkman so that he didn't hear anything that would scare him. Yet he was still bricking it, to quote his own words, and alarm prickled through his neck and back. He was adamant that he was not alone. Haunted house stories were common in Lyndhurst because the village dated back to before the Norman conquest of 1066. Wow. Never, though, did anyone tell any spooky stories about the lakes within the New Forest National Park. After years of experience, I welcomed all the nocturnal sounds in woodland around lakes. Wildlife caused all of these. Birds, squirrels, rats, and wood mice at work generated all the rustlings within bramble thickets, disturbed leaf litter, and leaves turning over. Water voles crunching club brush as they ate it sounded like Bugs Bunny munching a carrot. Excuse me. I recognized the footfalls and snuffling of badgers as they rooted out worms, snails, and slugs to eat. Foxes barked, deer squealed, often birds called or sang, including owls, crows, thrushes, and robins. Flying bats clipped my fishing line and it twanged, yanking the fishing rod tip, making me think a fish had bitten. I've had that happen when night fishing. Oh, it's so frustrating. Kingfishers perched on the rod and eyed me quizzical. Carp and pike crashed about in the lily pad, splashing water and moths buzzed around my headlamp. So here I was by a new forest lake I loved, immersed in its primal nature in July of 1994. On this, the night of the incident, all was well with the world as nature went about its business, and my ex-army mate Bertie was drinking a cup of tea in the moonlight as he fished at the other side of the lake. Only in England. Love it. Been over there a couple times. The people are great. Yep. We'd be drinking something different here, drink out there catfishing at night. It would be cold and about 4.5% proof, well, 9 proof, 4.5%. When fishing alone, I was aware at times that I was not actually alone. Whilst not feeling threatened, I knew when something was watching me. Every time I sensed this, Darkness is falling. It's getting creepy. I feel like I'm not alone. Continue to get my 6. I knew when something was watching me. Every time I sensed this, when I looked around me, I saw a dog, cat, fox, deer, badger, and once a cow, which was crashing about. That's weird. However, in the back of my mind at times was a harrowing tale of 4 carp fishermen who fled the famed and haunted Redmire Pool in Herefordshire. The ground shook. The temperature within their tent dropped until their breath misted in the night air. Something huge with eyes of a color they had never seen in man nor beast unzipped the door of their shelter, stooped and peered inside, and they cowered there, screaming. Whatever that cryptid or spirit was, it seemed curious about and yet also indifferent to those fishermen who feared for their sanity and lives. Perhaps it did not see them as a threat. As soon as their visitor left, accompanied by the ground shaking again, they packed up and drove away from those 3 haunted acres of water. They never fished there again. Medium and psychic that I was or not, I knew my own reaction would have been the same as those Redmire anglers. I was fishing for brim tonight. These went to 8 pounds here. That's big brim. Here they're like the size of your hand. They're big. Although I half hoped I wouldn't catch one. They weren't called snotters for nothing. Smothered in thick mucus slime, they left it all over your line, your landing net, and you. Ew, it was gross. It's like catching a blob. Out on the water, beneath the full moon, a tiny green glow stick was mounted on top of my float in clear plastic tubing. This showed bites fine. However, later, these green isotopes induced a well-documented illusion. They appeared to dance from side to side, and no amount of squinting, shaking your head, rubbing your eyes, or coffee stopped it. So when that dance hit, I did what I usually did, reeled in and opened my waterproof sleeping bag. I checked my watch. It was 1:05. It was time to view the stars and moon for a bit, then sleep the rest of the night away. The crystal clear sky with silver stars and no light pollution and moonlight bathing the treetops above me induced my eyelids to droop in peace. I felt like my whole body was sinking into something deep, intangible, and welcoming. I later learned that this was the same feeling that the deep relaxation of hypnosis induces. In an instant, that drift down into untroubled sleep shattered. A bell sounded, deafening. It shot spikes through my ears and into my brain, like I had toothache in there. I shot up just off the ground in shock, thudded down again, and gasped. My heart thumped in my aching ears. My neck and back prickled in alarm. My eyes started open. I shrieked. 3 figures loomed over me. Each wore long, dark, hooded robes, which reached their feet, and rope sashes gathered the waistlines. The moonlight picked out gray faces inside each hood. The bell sounded twice more, and when the peals ceased, all 3 hooded figures vanished. I knew my history. There had never been a church, abbey, or monastery on this site, nor was there any building in this area now which had a bell. The nearest church bell was 8 miles away in Lyndhurst, and that ringing would sound nowhere near as loud as the one I had just heard. Pardon me for touching the screen. I'm getting the low battery notice here, but I got enough to finish the story. I got 20% left. Okay, something told me to look behind me and upwards. As the universe is my witness, I swear that in the moonlight for an instant I saw the glint of conical bronze, a bell within a stone arch. In a flash, both disappeared, starry sky and treetops returning to view. They do say that in some wooded places the veil thins after midnight, or after 1, and sometimes after 3. Did whoever had stumbled upon me have a different time frame to the one I was in? Did that bell have a different time frame to the one I was in? Had a parallel reality connected for moments with the one I was in? Shaking, I stared at my watch. 1:18. Bertie, with his thick mustache turned up, he thought he had seen it all, and he had indeed experienced plenty. He once told me about when he had been stationed in Germany and saw a werewolf. He blamed his drinking problem on that experience, unhinged him. He was now abstaining, so I had no reason to disbelieve his creepy stories. I did doubt, however, that the werewolf was the trauma which caused his boozing. It was about the people whose cause he agreed with trying to kill him, and that he was expected to kill them, the IRA. Bertie imitated Quasimodo. The bells! The bells! One bell, and bloody loud, Bertie. Your scream woke me up, you booger. Are you okay, mate? I groaned. I'll live. Didn't that bell wake you? It would have woken the dead. Bertie laughed. Yeah, not for the first time either, and you screaming finished the job. You've heard the bell before? So many times I've lost count, and I've even seen those bloody monks too. Did you see them, Charlie? The end. Wow. Man, there's something back there. It's like the veil's getting ready to crack open or something. See all that misty haze? Charlie and Teresa, thank you for your stories. You guys, all of you can get the True Haunting volumes. This is the 4th one on Amazon and printer Kindle, as well as the October Night books. You can get autographed print copies from our Etsy store. The links are in the description box. If you have a creepy story or several creepy stories, email them to us here. The email address on the channel is crazylake@mail.com. Give us your permission to do so, just like Charlie did, and we'll share your stories here on Homesteading Off the Grid, the most amazing homesteading channel on the internet that has nothing to do with homesteading. And we'll include them in the next anthology. We've already had several submissions for Volume 5, so I'd love to get that out by Christmas, but we'll see. And with that, I will bid you adieu. I'm going to slip out of here and make sure I don't step on any little teeny tiny baby turtles. See you again tomorrow night, as well as every night for the whole month of October, where we're going to set up here and tell ghost stories. So send your friends. Tell everybody. See you then.